At the beginning of the film, we viewers see a lady running away from someone. This lady runs through tunnels and emerges by removing some ground. But before she can fully escape, a masked man attacks this lady. Before she meets her end, the lady cries out, saying she doesn't want to end again. From here, the scene changes to focus on a girl named Clover, who is on a road trip with her friends to find her sister Melanie. Besides Clover, their group includes Max, who is Clover's ex-boyfriend, then two girls named Nina and Megan, along with Nina's boyfriend Abe. They are traveling in Abe's car. From their conversation, we understand that after Clover's mother passed away, Clover's sister, Melanie, left her and has been missing ever since. However, Melanie did send Clover a video in which we can see a shop called Hartley's, and Clover and her friends have located that shop. Now, here I'll tell you a bit about the dynamics between everyone. Like, Max wants to be Clover's boyfriend again. Then, Nina changes her partner every 3 months, and this partner is sometimes a boy and sometimes a girl. However, Nina's friends have always been Clover, Megan, and Max, and this tells us that Abe is new to their group. Megan is a bit psychic, believing in positive and negative vibes. Also, there was some tension between Clover and her sister Melanie, but now Clover is looking for her sister Melanie. One more thing is that after watching Melanie's video, we viewers clearly understand that the girl who met her end in the first scene was none other than Melanie. Anyway, Clover goes inside the shop, where she meets a shopkeeper named Hill. Hill tells her that a little further from this place is a mining town called Glore Valley, and many people go missing there. So, if Melanie came this far, it's quite possible that she went missing in Glore Valley. Hearing this, Clover and the others drive towards Glore Valley, and it was raining heavily on the way. Because of this, everyone was worried. But suddenly, they reach an area where there was a visitor center, and only in that particular area it was not raining. Now, this was weird, like a kind of water wall where there was a stormy rain all around, but there was a spot or area where it wasn't raining at all. Anyway, everyone goes inside the guest house or visitor center where no one was there, but there were some strange things. Like the date on the calendar was Saturday, October 24th, 1998, which is 20 years ago from today. Then there was an hourglass that was running and almost empty. Now, as night falls, Nina signs the register, meaning she will stay here. Abe sees a missing persons board here with Melanie's photo on it. Yes, friends, not only that, but Melanie's name was also written in the guest house register as a guest, multiple times. During this time, Clover feels like someone is outside in the forest, and Clover goes to investigate in the forest. After a while, Max brings Clover back, and when Clover finds out about Melanie's missing photo and her name in the register, she is very shocked. Not only that, suddenly their attention goes to the hourglass, which had started again, meaning this hourglass had been turned over, even though none of them had done it. Things get even weirder when someone turns on Abe's car and drives it into the forest area, and they don't go after the car because the person sitting in it might be dangerous. By this point, everyone started to feel that something strange was going on here, and in such a situation, Clover, Max, and Megan go to the basement. And there were windows in the basement too, which was, again, weird. Suddenly, a masked man first ends Abe, then takes care of Nina as well. After this, he kills Megan and Max, and Clover somehow runs outside, although Clover doesn't survive because that masked man also ends her. Now, as this happens, we see the hourglass again, which turns on its own due to a mechanical system, and these 5 were alive again from the same point when night fell and the hourglass first started. Yes, friends, the game here is about a time loop, which we will discuss at the end of the video, but for now, these five were very worried, because they clearly remembered that they didn't survive the previous night, but somehow everyone was alive now. All of them are back. Now, the craziest thing was that their photos were also on the missing persons board now. At this point, everyone thinks of running away from here, but suddenly, Megan becomes possessed, and the house lights also go out. They go after Megan, where Megan, in a possessed state, was pointing at the missing persons board, and she was talking like the people whose photos were there, depicting that all the people whose photos are on the missing board are stuck here in a time loop like them forever. After this, Megan suddenly falls and meets her end, and everyone panics and locks the visitor place from the inside. Just then, Clover hears Melanie's voice from outside, and despite the others telling her not to, Clover goes outside. Now, outside, a dilapidated house appears in front of them, which wasn't there before, and suddenly some invisible force pulls Clover into this house. Max wanted to save Clover. In fact, Nina wanted the same. But because Abe was new to the group and didn't have a bond with them, he was more concerned with saving himself. Anyway, inside that dilapidated house, Clover sees strange clown-type masks, and rather, we can say they looked like half-mannequins. Then a creepy old woman attacks Clover and says that either she survives the whole night or becomes part of this never-ending night. Saying this, the old woman turns into a skeleton and meets her end, and because of her actions, Clover becomes possessed. On the other hand, Max comes to this ruined house looking for Clover, while Abe somehow convinces Nina and tries to run away in the car. They see a large, giant monster ahead, due to which they have to return. Then a masked man ends not only Abe, but also Nina. Meanwhile, Max, who was looking for Clover, is also attacked by the possessed Clover wearing a mask. Then she herself ends up under Abe's car. So yes, once again the whole group has met their end. And here I am using words like met their end or ended, because there are YouTube guidelines. You understand, people. Now, let me tell you one thing. When Max went to that old house looking for Clover, he saw some drawings of creatures there. Then there was news of a mining accident on TV, and a Joker doll too. You will understand the connection of all this by the end yourself. For now, once again the hourglass turned, night started again, and everyone finds themselves alive. This time, everyone smartly locks themselves in the bathroom, because it's the safest place here. Abe takes water from the tap and everyone drinks it. But Megan was surprised because there was no water in this bathroom before. Megan also notices how their bodies were changing every time after they met their end, like hair falling out, scars appearing, strange teeth growing, and so on. Now, before everyone could make any further plans, Abe suddenly coughs and literally explodes. After this, everyone starts exploding one by one because there was something dangerous mixed in the water they drank, due to which their bodies had such a reaction that they were exploding. Clover survives until the end, and here Hill appears in front of Clover. Yes, friends, Hill is the same guy Clover met at that gas station shop. And before Clover meets her end, Hill says that she almost survived until the end of the night, and if she wants to survive, she won't be able to by sitting idle. After this, Clover also meets her end, and the hourglass turns. So again, these people are alive, and this time they start searching the house so that they can find some clue about what is happening here and how to get out of here. In such a situation, Clover finds some IDs of Hill, suggesting that Hill is some kind of doctor, and he is definitely involved in all this. Abe finds a 20-year-old newspaper in which it was written that there was a mining disaster in Glore Valley at that time. Basically, while mining, people dug so deep that the whole town sank inside. And during this incident, more than 1,100 people met their end. The people who survived suffered trauma, and to deal with that trauma, a doctor, Hill, was called, who was some kind of therapist, and he was dealing with the survivors. This is why no other houses were visible in this area, because they must have sunk into the ground, and we could see windows in the basement because the upper floor must have collapsed into the ground. These people also find a door in the so-called basement area, but it was so dark beyond the door that no one goes there. Just then, Max finds a VHS tape, and inside this tape, they find answers to many questions. In the tape, Hill is saying how instead of giving therapy to the surviving survivors, he started experimenting on them. The patients suffered from muscle atrophy, felt hungry, but most of all, they felt fear. A lot of fear. This worked for Hill because the survivors had the trauma of the mining disaster, and the same trauma was inflicted on the visitors. In short, the longer people lived with this fear, the more they transformed into a kind of monster. And finally, they became a strange creature that we can call a Wendigo. So, Wendigos were creatures that were humans themselves. Then they came back after meeting their end for 13 nights, and finally transformed due to fear. So, it seems these 5 people will also become Wendigos if they meet their end 13 times. In fact, in the register of this place, the names of all the people were written 13 times, depicting that if they couldn't get out of this place before meeting their end 13 times, they would be stuck here forever as Wendigos. So now you understand why the mining news was playing on TV there. Then clowns were visible, or why there were strange creatures drawn on the pages. Mostly, this was Hill's experiment, so yes, hearing all this, everyone's condition worsens, and Clover says she wants to meet Hill face to face. To this, Hill says that if Clover comes alone, it's possible, and if Clover is ready to sacrifice herself, then Hill will let the other 4 go. Clover was kind of ready to take this deal, and Abe was also urging Clover to take the deal to save himself, although the others didn't agree to this because Clover was their good friend. Still, Clover goes into the forest alone, where she gets caught in a bear trap, and someone pulls her away. On the other hand, everyone is angry at Abe because Abe was behaving quite selfishly, and they wanted the loop to start again. That's why Nina attacks Abe, while Megan and Max go looking for Clover. Now again, the same thing happens that you are expecting. That is, first Megan gets caught in the trap and falls through the glass door, meeting her end. Then the masked man ends Nina and Abe. Max meets Clover here, but they needed to start a new loop to save their friends, so at Clover's request, Max ends her, then brings himself in front of the Wendigo, due to which he also meets his end. In short, the loop will restart again. So, yes, everyone was alive again, but the twist was that this was their 13th and final loop. Yes, friends, you must be thinking how this happened, so let me tell you that they actually didn't remember exactly how many times the loop had restarted. I mean, whatever was happening to them, the game of meeting their end, had already happened 13 times, or this was the 13th time, and they find this out by looking at the register where Nina had signed 13 times, depicting that this was their final loop before they turned into Wendigos. Abe and the others' bodies had already undergone many changes, and here Abe had many recordings on his phone in which they could see how they had met their end in different loops. In fact, many more houses had now become visible outside the house. Just then, they notice that Megan is not with them, and Abe guesses that maybe Megan survived. They check a video on the phone where they find a video that Megan had made, and she had indeed survived and gone after Hill into that basement door where it was quite dark. Just then, the four of them start going through the dark tunnels, through that door, so that they can confront Hill and get out of here. They all follow Megan's path, where they have to fight Wendigos, but somehow everyone keeps moving forward, surviving. In fact, some masked people also surprise attack them. And in this attack, Clover gets separated from the others. Here, Clover now sees her sister Melanie, but as a Wendigo, and Clover reluctantly has to end Melanie because she had become a Wendigo, and Clover had to save herself too. Then Clover finally finds Megan, who was trapped in a room, and a chained Wendigo was slowly breaking its chains to end Megan. On the other hand, Abe, Nina, and Max are fighting the Wendigos together and saving themselves. Now, Clover runs and reaches Hill's office, and Hill also comes there. Clover confronts Hill, and Hill reveals that he is conducting experiments, and the creatures they have seen are part manifestations of Clover's depression and fear. Here, we learn a little more about Clover, how she is depressed in life. In fact, she had even tried to harm herself twice. So, yes, these monsters are real, but they do showcase human psyche and are somehow manifestations of our negative emotions, especially fear. In short, this place is driven by people's fear and insecurity. And these were the experiments Hill was conducting, where he brought people with trauma and every place with trauma together to create such terrifying scenarios in which people get trapped and they turn into monsters like Wendigos. Now, during the conversation, Clover notices that the poisonous water was dripping from the pipes above. Yes, the same water that they drank and exploded from, and Clover quietly drips that water into Hill's teacup. As Hill takes a sip of his tea while giving a speech, he also explodes. After this, Clover takes the keys and frees Megan, while the others end the masked man, and then they all run together through the tunnel. Wendigos are after them, but they somehow reach the end of the tunnel. And friends, this is the same point where we saw Melanie coming during the first scene, and they get out of the tunnel just in time. And as the hourglass ends and the sun rises, they realize that they have finally escaped the time loop. Now, the group, freed from the time loop, celebrates their victory and drives away from this place. They leave from here. In the ending scene of the movie, we are shown the same room where there were several surveillance screens of the same place. Then suddenly, the rainy weather changes to a snowfall type, and a car stops here. The movie ends here.